Fiancee decided to rekindle feelings for her old crush, so I made sure she ended up where she truly belonged. Let me break it down for you. This wasn't something I ever imagined facing at 22, especially not after 3 years with someone I believed was my forever. The story begins with a 22-year-old man engaged to his 21-year-old fiancée, someone he had been with for 3 years. Their relationship, forged during their formative years, had grown strong over time, and they recently got engaged. He believed their bond was solid, though not perfect, and trusted their honesty with each other. However, in November, subtle changes in her behavior began to raise suspicions. He noticed she had been texting a man named Matt, an old crush from before their relationship began. At first, he didn't think much of it. She even shared bits of their conversations, making it seem harmless. Matt, whom he'd met briefly at a friend's gathering, appeared to be just an old acquaintance. But as time went on, she started bringing Matt up in unrelated conversations, weaving him into moments where his name didn't belong. Her phone habits also changed. Once indifferent to her phone, she now seemed glued to it, texting constantly, even when they were together. When questioned, she brushed it off, claiming it was just friends. But her defensive tone and furtive behavior made him uneasy. Things escalated when she suggested a Netflix show for them to watch, which she claimed to have discovered on her own. Days later, he found out Matt had recommended it to her. This revelation struck him deeply. What he thought was their shared experience had originated with someone else. The turning point came one evening when she left her phone unattended on the couch. Curiosity got the better of him, and he scrolled through her messages. What he saw confirmed his fears. The conversations with Matt went beyond friendly banter. There were selfies, photos of her outfits, and even a picture of them carving pumpkins together, which she had captioned for Matt as, "Look at us being cute." These were moments he believed were private to their relationship, now shared with someone who felt like an outsider intruding on their lives. He tried to dismiss his unease, convincing himself that perhaps he was overreacting, but her behavior continued to worsen. She began texting Matt during work hours and even set her phone to "Do Not Disturb" when they were together, clearly hiding something. Then came the message that unraveled everything. Matt confessed his feelings, telling her the ball was in her court. Her response devastated him. Instead of shutting Matt down, she admitted she needed time to think about her feelings. Worse, she screenshotted the exchange and sent it to her best friend, seeking advice on what to do. This act made it clear, she was considering pursuing her old crush while still engaged. Heartbroken, he realized that what he thought was a secure relationship had been compromised. The trust they had built was now overshadowed by doubts, lies, and emotional betrayal. Sitting there with her phone in hand, he couldn't help but wonder how their relationship had reached this point. Relationships, he knew, could be complicated. Everyone occasionally had fleeting thoughts about past crushes, but this was different. She wasn't just reminiscing, she was actively engaging with Matt, sharing moments from their lives as if he were some kind of backup plan. As he reflected, he realized there had been signs all along, subtle comments and shifts in behavior that he had dismissed because he didn't want to seem overly suspicious or possessive. But now, the reality was clear. That morning, he couldn't even look at her. As she moved through her routine, acting as though everything was normal, he felt a growing disconnection. He was angry and hurt but also confused, unable to reconcile the person he loved with the person who had been hiding this other connection. Throughout the day, he replayed their recent moments together, questioning how much of it was genuine. Had she been thinking about Matt all along? Was he just a placeholder? By the time she returned home, he was a wreck. Determined to confront her, he rehearsed what he would say, knowing this could be the end of their relationship. When she arrived, she spoke casually about her day, unaware of the storm brewing. He could barely listen, his mind racing with the texts he had read. When she asked if he was okay, he finally told her they needed to talk. Her confusion quickly turned to nervousness as she sat down, fidgeting with her hands. He revealed what he had seen on her phone, and her reaction, pale and startled, confirmed his fears. She tried to downplay it, insisting that Matt was just a friend and their conversations meant nothing. But as he pressed further, pointing out the moments she had shared with Matt, selfies, private pictures, and personal moments, it became clear she wasn't being entirely honest. Her defensiveness grew, and her explanations felt hollow. When he brought up the text where Matt confessed his feelings and left the decision in her hands, her demeanor shifted again. She brushed it off as harmless flirting and claimed not to have taken it seriously. But he knew better. She had screenshotted the exchange and sent it to her best friend, clearly seeking advice. Her excuses, that she didn't want to lose their relationship but couldn't cut Matt off, felt like a betrayal. She claimed it was complicated, but to him, it wasn't. She had to choose between the man she was engaged to and the man she was emotionally entangled with. The breaking point came when she admitted she hadn't told him about Matt because she didn't think he'd understand. This justification stung deeply. It wasn't about protecting his feelings, it was about protecting herself and keeping Matt in her life without consequences. At that moment, he realized their relationship might already be beyond saving. Everything he thought they had built was slipping away, and she had already made her choice. He was simply the last one to know. Sitting there with her phone, he kept asking himself how their relationship had reached this point. He understood that relationships could be messy and that fleeting thoughts about a past crush might happen, but this was far beyond that. She wasn't just reminiscing, she was actively engaging with Matt, sharing their private moments as though he were some backup plan. Her hesitant response when he confronted her only deepened his doubts. She insisted there was nothing more to the situation, but her body language and evasive behavior told a different story. Unable to shake the feeling that she was still hiding something, he decided to step away. He told her he needed time to think and would stay at his parents' house for a few days. Strangely, she didn't try to stop him or even ask to discuss things further. Her reaction felt more like relief than concern. As he drove away, memories of their relationship played over and over in his mind. He questioned whether he had missed the warning signs and wondered if he was partly to blame for not noticing the subtle changes earlier. The secretive way she handled her phone, her sudden increase in outings with friends, and her newfound interests all pointed to a separate life she was building without him. Though part of him clung to the hope that they could salvage their relationship, his doubts grew stronger. He felt like he was the only one fighting to save something that may no longer exist. After a sleepless night filled with second-guessing, he realized he needed answers. He had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. When he returned to their apartment, she looked nervous, as though she knew a confrontation was inevitable. He told her they needed to talk again and made it clear he wouldn't accept vague excuses or half-truths this time. Her initial response was the same as before, they were just friends, and it wasn't serious. But he wasn't convinced. When he pressed her further, she hesitantly admitted that she had gotten caught up in the attention Matt gave her. She claimed she hadn't realized how much it would hurt him. Her reluctance to meet his gaze and her long pauses, however, suggested she was still holding back. Finally, after persistent questioning, she confessed to seeing Matt in person multiple times. At first, she framed it as casual coffee meetups, but her defensive tone made it clear there was more. When he directly asked if anything physical had happened, her brief hesitation before admitting it confirmed his worst fears. She muttered that it just kind of happened, as though that explanation could soften the betrayal. At that moment, he realized how far things had gone and how much trust had been broken. This wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a series of deliberate choices that prioritized her desires over their commitment. Sitting there, he felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath him. She had admitted to being unfaithful, brushing it off as if it just happened and wasn't a deliberate choice. Her attempts to downplay it, calling it a one-time mistake, only made things worse. He had been putting his heart into salvaging their relationship, only to learn she had betrayed him both emotionally and physically. When he asked why she had done it, her answer stung deeply. She claimed she had been confused, feeling as though she had lost a part of herself, and reconnecting with Matt had helped her regain some peace. She insisted she never intended for things to go so far and didn't mean to hurt him. Yet, her words only highlighted how many signs he had ignored, the vague comments, secretive behavior, and moments she had avoided discussing Matt. Trust, which he had given freely, had been completely disregarded. While he had been planning their future, she had been sharing parts of her life with someone else, parts that should have been exclusive to their relationship. Her guilt was obvious, but it no longer mattered to him. She wasn't sorry for what she had done, she was sorry for being caught. Realizing that she might have kept her infidelity hidden forever had he not found the messages, he asked her whether she still cared about their relationship. She could only repeat the same hollow excuses, calling it a mistake and saying she was confused. But to him, this wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. Reaching his breaking point, he told her that if she wanted to be with Matt, she should go ahead. He wouldn't stick around while she decided if he was worth it. She pleaded for another chance, promising to do whatever it took to fix things, but her words rang hollow. Trust had been shattered, and he couldn't believe anything she said. He began packing his belongings, needing space to clear his head. As he left, she called after him with more apologies, but he didn't look back. Her words had lost all meaning. Betrayed on a level he never imagined possible, he sat in his car, replaying her actions and wondering how he had missed all the signs. Over the next few days at his parents' house, he reflected on their relationship, questioning what had been real and what had been a lie. The more he thought about it, the more he realized how much she had relied on him, not just emotionally but financially. He had co-signed for their apartment, paid most of the bills, and even helped her get a car. In hindsight, it felt like she had used him as a safety net while maintaining a secret life with someone else. When he returned to the apartment to gather more of his things, she was waiting for him, looking exhausted and remorseful. She immediately launched into apologies, claiming she had thought about everything and would do anything to repair their relationship. But he was no longer willing to entertain her excuses. This wasn't just a betrayal of their relationship, it was a betrayal of the future they had planned together. Her actions had irreparably damaged the foundation of trust they had built, and for him, there was no going back. As she spoke, she said all the right things, but they felt hollow and meaningless. She apologized repeatedly, claiming she missed him and couldn't believe she had let things spiral so badly. She promised to cut Matt off, attend counseling, and work on their relationship. But all he could think about was how easily she had lied before, pretending everything was fine while hiding her actions. Her words now felt like damage control rather than genuine remorse. He told her he couldn't believe her promises anymore. If she truly wanted to work on their relationship, she should have considered that before sneaking around. She looked at him with pleading eyes, but he was unmoved. He had been the one investing time, money, and commitment into their relationship while she had betrayed that trust. When she tried to argue that she had contributed too, the truth was clear to him. He had carried the financial and emotional weight of their life together, paying bills, co-signing the apartment lease, and even helping her get a car. And now, she had thrown it all away for the fleeting excitement of reconnecting with an old crush. Her attempts to justify her actions only deepened his anger. She called Matt an old friend and said she never thought things would go so far. He questioned how she could betray the person who had been her rock and her support. She had no answer, only guilt and embarrassment. She broke down, crying and begging for another chance, claiming she couldn't imagine her life without him. She tried to guilt-trip him, saying she wouldn't know where to go or how to manage without him. But he saw through her desperation. She wasn't fighting for him, she was fighting to keep the comfortable life he had built for her. In that moment, he realized it was never about love, it was about what he provided. Her actions had proven she didn't value their relationship or the stability he offered. He told her he was taking his name off the lease and she'd have to figure out her own living situation. Her panic and protests didn't sway him. She had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. Packing the last of his belongings, he felt a strange sense of relief. While her betrayal hurt deeply, he no longer had to question her honesty or wonder if she was hiding something. As he walked out the door, her apologies and promises to change echoed behind him, but they no longer held any weight. Driving away, he felt the pain of loss but also the freedom of knowing he could finally move forward. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Her choices had cost her everything, and for the first time, he wasn't going to be her safety net. He had made up his mind, there was no point in dragging things out any longer. The constant explanations and pleas from his ex-fiancée no longer held any weight. Despite cutting ties, her messages kept coming, long paragraphs detailing her regret, how much she missed him, and promises to do whatever it took to make things right. But for him, these words only served as reminders of how far she had betrayed his trust and how much damage had been done. When texts failed to get a response, she resorted to calling him repeatedly, but he ignored those too. After a week of persistence, she left a voicemail saying she was outside his parents' house and needed to talk. Realizing she wouldn't stop until she confronted him in person, he reluctantly stepped outside. She looked disheveled, as though the stress of the past week had worn her down. Her apologies followed a familiar script. She admitted she had made a mistake, took full responsibility, and offered to do anything to prove herself. But he couldn't bring himself to care anymore. Her actions had already revealed who she truly was, and no amount of regret could undo the betrayal. When she claimed she had nowhere else to go, he felt a moment of guilt but quickly reminded himself that her choices, not his, had brought her here. Despite her tears and attempts to appeal to his empathy, he saw her pleas for what they were, fear of facing the consequences of her actions, not genuine remorse. When she asked if she could stay with him until she sorted things out, he firmly told her no. She had made her choices, and now she had to deal with the fallout on her own. Realizing he wouldn't budge, she cried harder, repeating that she had made a mistake and didn't know what to do. But he was done being manipulated. For too long, he had been her support system, financially and emotionally, while she had taken him for granted. Her desperation wasn't about love, it was about losing the stability he had provided. Before she left, she made one last attempt to convince him, promising she'd do whatever it took to make things right. He told her she needed to start by being honest with herself. Her repeated excuses about not meaning for things to happen were just a way to avoid responsibility. Watching her walk away, he felt a mix of relief and finality. A few days later, she sent one last message asking if they could remain friends. He deleted it without responding and blocked her number. He wasn't about to let her keep a foot in the door, hoping to crawl back when things got tough. Looking back, he realized how much he had ignored red flags. Their relationship hadn't been built on love but on convenience. Weeks passed, and he began to feel like he could finally move forward. Then, through a mutual acquaintance, he learned what happened next. After he cut her off, she had gone straight to Matt, the same man she had betrayed him with. But their fling barely lasted 2 weeks before Matt returned to his girlfriend, leaving her alone and abandoned. Hearing this brought a sense of closure. It wasn't about wanting her to suffer, but seeing how quickly her choices caught up to her felt like karma. She had thrown away a stable, 3-year relationship for someone who saw her as nothing more than a fleeting distraction. Now, she had nothing, no relationship, no support, no stability. As he reflected, he realized how lucky he was to have walked away. She had made her choices, and they had finally caught up to her. For him, it was time to move forward and find someone who truly valued him.